Hello. So, I was up at a friend's recently, and his son had bought this. His son Fred. Hello, Fred. And it's supposedly a valve preamplifier. But I wonder if it really is. It's fairly compact. It's nicely made. Nice aluminium die-cast box. Has a volume control, treble and bass power switch. If we have a look around the back, we've got the usual made in China inputs and outputs, but what makes me suspicious is the fact that it runs on 12 volts DC. I suppose, in theory, you could run the valve heaters in series if they're 6.3 volts, which they probably would be, but unless it's got some complicated boost converting power supply in it, then you wouldn't be able to run the valves off 12 volts. I think you wouldn't need that much to run a small valve like these. You'd probably need about 50-60 volts, and they'd work on that. And as for the valves, well, I don't know much about modern valves or modern Chinese valves, and unfortunately most of the numbering's rubbed off, and they are fairly small. Well, they appear to be valves. They've got all the usual things you expect to see, but if we have a look inside, what is slightly concerning is the fact that there's an LED in the bottom of the valve base. So are they just there for effect, or does it really work as a valve preamplifier? And I'm going to stick that one back in. So I think the thing to do to test it is just stick some 12 volts up it and see what it draws off my power supply. So I'll do that. Okay, so I've got cable going into it. I've set my power supply for 12 volts with a current limit of 1 amp. So let's turn the power on. And yes, oh, that's interesting. So that exhibits all the signs of having heaters. Started off around 700 milliamps and dropped down, and they're going up a bit again. Maybe because the valves are conducting. I don't know. But I mean, if it was just a fake one with some op amps in it, then it wouldn't draw that much, would it? But let's go back down to it, and we've got some glow, which is the LED, and I don't really detect any warming of the actual valves. So what happens if I pull a valve out? That's also very interesting. Current drops to 100 milliamps. So I don't know. What should I do? I think I'll plug a signal into it. See if it really does work. I'm sure it does work. But I'll shove this valve back in. That's interesting as well. The LED dimmed when I plugged it in. Okay, I'm going to wire it up and get a signal into it. Okay, that's I've got a signal going in, and I'm going into my amplifier. So let's just turn the volume up.
for the price of property. You better get born in someplace else. Move along, get along, move along, get along, go, move, shift. Born at potato picking time in an old tent by a tatty field. Farmer said the work's all done this time, but she was moving on. You better get born in someplace else. Move along, get along, move along, get along.
Well, it certainly seems to work, so that's good. And I'm actually now feeling some slight warmth from the valves. Now, when I saw this initially, I thought, no, it's going to be fake. It's going to be fake. But now I'm not quite so sure. It really does seem to be a preamplifier with valves in it. So, what do we do now? Take it apart, I think, would be quite interesting. I could see what's going on in there. Yes, I'll do that. I will turn the power off. That's interesting. I turn the power off, I got audio for it even though the volume was down. Okay, that might make sense, or mate. Yeah, okay. Let's take all these wires off it anyway. And I think it's Allen headed bolts. So just pause this while I find the right Allen key. Right, got the right Allen key. And the first thing to do is take the valves out and do all these little bolts. I see somebody's already been in this because the screws are missing that go in there, which is typical, but not terribly important, and I can find some more if I need to. How does this come apart? Let's get all the screws out. So, back plate comes off, and seems to be a solid case all the way around, so it must slide out. Oh no, that's not very nice. They use different sized Allen bolts on the front. I've got to try and find some more. Another Allen key, I mean. Some moments later, because I have to remove my camera mount to get the drawer open, and back with another Allen key. And it's absolutely freezing in my workshop. Outside temperature is about 3 degrees at the moment. Don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's not very much. And workshop temperature 6.5. Guess that's in the 40s Fahrenheit. Because after a mini heat wave last week, we've now gone back to winter again, which is rather sad. Anyway, that slides out. And what do we have here then? Well, one thing that is interesting, if we can find a pointer, is we'll have one of these today. Over here we've got the power supply section, of course, and there's all sorts of complicated things going on there, which probably indicates that they're generating some high voltage. Don't know if I can read any of those chips. Well, I can read some numbers, but they don't mean anything to me. I mean, that may be a MOSFET. it probably is a MOSFET switching through the inductor, and with some other gubbins down here that does something or other. And we've also got some what is almost certainly op amps here and here, and they are any 5532. Don't know what that is offhand, but it's probably just a fairly reasonable quality op amp, and that may be to do with the actual tone controls. Not sure. But looking around, I can see some connections that go to the valves, and on the bottom, yeah, doesn't seem to be many connections on the bottom to the valves. That's the LED. Okay. Well, we've got some 250 volt electrolytics here. So if I plug it in and measure across those, it would be interesting to see what actual voltage we have. Okay, power supply back on. Oh, no valves. No current draw because there's no valves. Oh dear. Does help if you plug the valves in. Or tubes, if you're of that persuasion. Anyway, my electrolytics are there, so turn it back on, and I think I need a bench meter rather than that would be easier. Of course, what I meant to say was I needed a handheld meter because it's easier to get it in shot. But anyway, across the capacitors we have 87 volts. That's really impressive. And the other one, 87 volts. Very nice. And I don't know which pins the heaters are. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, isn't it? 1.2 there. 10. 5.6. That could be the heaters. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 and 4. 63. I've got a vague recollection of ECC 83s that it's 4 and 5, but I don't know what these do. 5.7. I'm going to guess those are the heaters, I'm not sure though. But all in all, much to my surprise, it does really seem to be a valve amplifier with 87 volts on the anodes. And what else can we do with it? Try and touch it, I suppose, because it's got 87 volts on it. I think really put it back together, I've proved it works, and it is really what it says it is. I think I could just do a distortion test on it, maybe. That might be vaguely interesting to somebody. So I'll do that, I'll put it all back together and set that up. Okay, so I've got 1 kilohertz going into it, it's 100 millivolts, and as you can hear, it's got a nice 1k tone. Excuse me. Right, what do I do now? I connect the scope up to it first of all, see what it looks like on that. Over to the scope. And change the time base. Looks okay to me. Certainly looks like 1 kilohertz. And well, can I make it clip? That's the thing. Let's try 500 millivolts. That goes, it blows it off the screen. And I'm getting 21 volts RMS. 21 volts. That's quite a fair output, isn't it? 21 volts. Well, I suppose it would be. I haven't made it clip yet though. Oh, there we go. What's that clipping at? 32 volts RMS. Well, you wouldn't want to shove that up an amplifier, would you? I think I'll turn that down again to something a bit more realistic. And that's 3 volts RMS. Okay, I think I'll just connect it up to my HP audio analyzer. And how do I do that? That's difficult, isn't it? Because the cables aren't long enough. That's got to go up above me. Okay, fatal mistake here. I was on, I'm sure I was. I'm on times 10. Well, I'm going straight in on the normal cables, so it wasn't as big as I thought it was. Let's go to times 1. And that's a bit more realistic now. And we're getting, for 100 millivolts going in, 289 I think it says, RMS. Well, that sounds a bit more like it. And clipping level is 3.6 volts. Okay, and that's for a volt in, and the volume's not, it's only about 3/4 of the way up. Okay, let's go over to the audio analyzer. So the audio analyzer says 2.6 volts coming out, and I can make it stay still, which of course it never does. And distortion 6%. Okay, well, that wasn't, I think that was near clipping anyway. I turn that back to a more reasonable voltage, let's say a volt. Hi-fi amplifier would be quite happy with a volt going into it. So a volt, and at that level is 2.8% distortion. Okay, well I suppose that's reasonable. I can turn it down a bit more in level. So now we've got 400 millivolts basically at 1 kilohertz, and the distortion, no, that's not the distortion. Distortion 1%. I guess that's about right for a valve amplifier. Okay, tests are all complete. And okay, I was most surprised with that. So that seems to work quite well. And don't know how much it cost, but probably wasn't too expensive. But at least it does do what it's supposed to do, and it's not lying. So thank you for watching, and bye for now.